So today we're going to talk about document design principles. When it comes to writing and preparing memos, reports, websites, writing is really important, the syntax, the grammar, the mechanics, but you cannot discount how you organize or format a page. Simple things like headers, bullet points. These are things that help a reader through the document. So we're going to kind of talk about some really simple principles that you can put into any document. And what's nice about these principles are that you don't have to be a graphic designer to make a really professional looking document. You just use these principles and it will look and be just as helpful to a user as anything a graphic designer could do. So for today, you read the Non-Designer's Design Book, which laid out 4 simple document design principles: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity, otherwise known as the CRAP principles. Easy way to remember it, and as you start working on your documents, I want you to really keep these things in mind and think about making sure that you have headings with contrast, that you are repeating certain elements such as color, bullet points, that you have a nice strong alignment, and that your information is placed in proximity. So let's talk about these. Let's break these down a little bit more. So contrast. Contrast helps information stand out. This is where you can create a hierarchy for your audience. You can help them move through the document. They know where to start, where to end. This can help them decide what information they want to read first if they're not going through something linearly. So if we take a look at this example, which does come straight from the book, this is a newsletter. And it is providing some contrast. The title here, Another Newsletter, is in large, much larger typeface font size than the other information. You have the headline. It's got some content. It's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit bolder. The thrilling subhead, again, a little bit bigger, a little bit bolder than this body text. And there is some hierarchy. You can see some start to some contrast here. But really, when you look at this, the subhead and the headline are not that, there's not that much difference between them, so you're not really sure where the hierarchy is. It's the exact same typeface as the body typeface, so again, this isn't as strong as it could be. Now this example, this is some big contrast. The title of it, Another Newsletter, is on white typeface against a black background. That's a really strong use of typeface, making sure that the text is a completely contrasting color from the background. We wouldn't want to put another newsletter in gray on a black background. That wouldn't be as much contrast. Again, you can see this headline is much larger than it was before, much bolder, and there's a visible size difference between the subhead and the headline. So that is creating a lot more contrast. Additionally, it looks as though maybe these typefaces are a little different. That's another key to creating some contrast, is using some different typefaces. Repetition. So repetition is really used to provide some consistency to a document. It makes it a more cohesive document, and it provides visual clues for the reader. If we think about something like warning signs, they're usually in bright red, so the audience always knows that when they see something red, that it is typically some sort of a really important information that they really need to know. So if we look at this example, This is a resume, and you can kind of see where there's a lot of repetition going on in here. And it can be small details, but they again can make the document seem cohesive. So here in the name, Jessica Baldwin, the first letter of each part of the name is much bigger than the other letters in the rest of it. So again, that's kind of another way of thinking about contrast as well. But where it becomes repetitive, you start to see in all of these headings, employment, education, professional skills, professional affiliation, each letter in the word is bigger than the rest of the letters. And even down here in references available upon request. That is an example of repetition. And again, bullet points, pretty basic, but you can see up here, there's also bullet points separating the units of information in her contact information. So again, repetition, these are the kinds of things that help make a document feel more cohesive. Alignment. This is where you help make visual connections between units of information. You really want to create a strong alignment. You don't want readers having to go all across the page trying to find where they should start, where they should end, what's the most important information. So here, this example, you can kind of see, just point out a few areas where there's not really a super strong alignment. Here, there's a picture with some text next to it, but the text next to it doesn't really line up with the picture. Same thing here, there are these kind of subheadings and an author name, but they don't really line up with anything. They're kind of just hanging out there, almost arbitrarily. Here there's a column and here is a column, but again, there's nothing lining up. This is just hanging out in the middle of this information. Same thing here, this logo down at the bottom, again, almost arbitrarily laid on the page, not really super helpful. Now we look at this. Looks the same kind of information, same sort of typeface, but everything just has a connection to something else. We see a really strong left alignment here where the picture, the subheading, and this column completely line up. Same thing over here. The end of this title lines up with the end of the line, with the author name, with the end of this column, and the end of this. Now this logo, it lines up with the text over there. And again, now these columns are lined up. So small changes, small shifts, but can be really, really useful. Proximity, that's where you're grouping items together. Again, it makes the document more cohesive and doesn't just have unrelated bits of information floating around. Everything, again, kind of has a connection to each other. In this example, this chamber concert series flyer, this is a series of concerts, obviously from the title, but you wouldn't really know what one concert was to the other. It really just looks like a simple list of information. You're not sure what is a unit of information for one concert or another concert, or even down here at the end, it's kind of this additional information about ticket costs and where they're being held. But all in one list, a user's not going to want to read through that and find out. So here is a remake of this, a redo. Now you have 4 discrete sections of information. You have 1 concert, 2 concerts, 3 concerts. Lets you know who's going to be playing, what they're going to be playing. The dates are bolded, so now we're starting to see some contrast in there. And then down here it gives that additional information that's kind of set apart from the information about the concerts, telling you ticket information, where to call for information, etc. So it goes from being a list to a nicely organized flyer. So here, let's just talk very quickly about typefaces. You have 4 typical typefaces. Serif, you can see these are considered feet. This is Times New Roman, Palatino, Garamond. Then you have sans serif, which as you can see don't have the feet. These are typically Helvetica, Arial. You have the scripty fonts, the things that look handwritten, and then decorative. These are, your Comic Sans, your Chalk Duster, and there are specific reasons you want to use each of these. Rule of thumb, serif font look better on a printed page, and sans serif look better on a screen, whether it's a PowerPoint presentation or a website. Serif fonts are typically better for body text, and sans serif are typically better for headings. And kind of create that contrast. Additionally, script. A lot of people tend to use that for their signatures and emails, maybe in more formal events and invitations, that sort of thing. Decorative, I think a good rule of thumb is to think really long and hard about your audience before you use decorative. I'm not sure if there are a lot of professional instances where Comic Sans is useful, but again, that's where the rhetorical situation comes in mind. Think about who your audience is, think about the purpose, and think about the context, how they're going to be reading it. Okay? So here I just want to briefly show you my most favorite, worst use of the CRAP principles, non-use of the CRAP principles ever. You can kind of see there's about 6 different typefaces going on, so there's no repetition there. There's no alignment. They have information kind of everywhere, right? They do try to box this information about their different food items, but it's a pale yellow box on top of a darker yellow box. So it doesn't really kind of give it that mix that it needs. The one point of this whole thing is the 20% off one entree, but it is down here in the corner, kind of buried by all of this confetti and crazy typefaces. Things are going in every direction. And some people have made the argument that it's trying to present a fun kind of celebration theme, but I think there are ways that we can do this with being a little bit more readable. So these are the CRAP principles. Now that we have got these done, we're going to move to another part of this week's activities where you will be putting your CRAP principles to test.